All right, so your birth certificate is collateralized against the debt, and it's issued as a bond and traded on securitized stock markets, including the New York Stock Exchange. GMEI Utility is a service of BED BV, a DTCC company. Now check this out. So you can put in your social security number. I just put in my first three numbers and then took off the rest, so no, I wouldn't be disclosing my social security number. But check this out, folks. These are all the fictitious corporations that have liens against me, against the dead entity, the out-to-sea straw man from the birth certificate, collateralized against the debt, pledged against the debt of the United States of America Corporation. So it's all in legalese corporations. We're dead entities, and then they file liens against the securitized numbers of my Social Security or my exemption identification number or employment identification number or EIN. But look at these, folks. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And you can click on each one of the QSIPs over here, and you can see the legal identities. Looks like I'm in Japan, I'm in Spain, France, Virgin Islands, Belgium, Ireland. They all are owning liens against me, and they're making money against my birth. And look at here, folks. They're showing 1,095 records. 1,095 records are claimed against my identity as my person. Crazy, right? You can all do it. I'll put this in the notes. You can do it yourself and see how many liens are filed against you, claims against your straw man of the birth certificate. And this is also why when you're born, your foot would land on the landmark, on the parchment paper that was part of the whole game to get you identified on land under contract so you don't exist as a human being. Again, we're chattel, we're cattle. Soldiers are sold to die. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. See the Georgia Guidestones. All right, GMEI Utility, Global Markets Entity Identifiers Utility. So business identity, a wholly owned subsidiary of DTCC, owns and operates Global Marketing Entity Identifier, Legal Entity Identifier, LEI, solution in the federated, sounds like something from Star Trek, Global LEI Systems. Launched in 2012, the GMEI utility is designed to provide a single, universal standard identifier to any organization or firm involved in transactions internationally. It has 14 global financial service organizations of global financial markets across all asset classes. It's recognized in 55 global regulators of the Regulatory Oversight Committee. Legal entities involved in financial transactions can use GMEI utility. Requires over 230 jurisdictions. Jurisdictions means whose business is, who has rights over it. The GMEI utility provides organizations with multiple legal entity subsidiaries and affiliates worldwide with the ability to register and maintain reference data for all entities in one place. DTCC is the primary post-trade market infrastructure. See that right there? Post-trade. After the trade's done, after they've securitized you, the global financial services industry. So this is the accounting arm, the recording arm in 16 countries. It automates, centralizes, and standardizes the post-trading processing of the financial transaction, mitigating risk, increasing transparency, and driving efficiency for thousands of broker-dealers, custodian banks, and asset managers worldwide. You didn't know they were trading your person, did you, folks? Well, here you go. So the Global Legal Identity Identifier System was expanded in 2017 to include data forms on which connections with parent companies could be mapped. This was to coordinate them, and I believe that the number is, the securitized number is 20 numbers long. I'll put this in the show notes too. And then this is the LEI system, the Legal Identifier System. So how do you identify the straw man? How do you identify the person out to sea who doesn't exist, who's just chattel? Well, they use this system here, the system network. I'll have to figure out what LOUs are, registrants. This is accessed by the master agreement. It looks like a global LEI here sector, but you see where they draw it across from. The public sector, financial institutions, investment vehicles, corporations, and SMEs, private individuals, research, and others. And then it's accessed by individual agreement with data vendors, technical facilitators, and outsourcing partners. So they can securitize against you. They can lend money against you. 1933, again, we declared bankruptcy in the United States from the debts of World War I. Never got out of it. So this is why running up the debt, $22 trillion since 2008, is all securitized against our person, against our straw man, against our entity that is a tradable commodity. So the more money they run up, the more every single one of us non-living units or utilities is owed as debt servitude to our masters. The master agreement, the local operating units, the LEI issuing organization are required to meet certain standards, blah, 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 and they license it, and the individual agreement as well. And then they have fees for the for identifying the legal identifier, LEI. 1 year term is 89 euros. Renewal is 59 euros. So when you register, this is how they make their fees on what they're doing as well. This is all part of the big game of the straw man. But as you can see, all of us, I guarantee you put your name in there, your social security number in there, your social security number with dashes, or your EIN, and you're going to come up with these lists of all these corporations that you're indebted to, that your person, your body, your human being is indebted to in a legalese system of Roman Latin law. Can anyone even tell me what the word Latin even means? So we're under Roman Latin law. Washington, D.C. used to be named Rome, Maryland. Trump is a Jesuit. Fordham University out here in California. Jerry Brown just resigned, Jesuit minister. Gavin Newsom, Jesuit. I mean, it goes on and on. These are the men in black that are owning our asses by their asset classes of certifications and registrations and putting out bonds against our person. And this all goes back to the book, A Creature from Jekyll Island by Edwin Griffin, that talks about how the Federal Reserve Corporation was created in 1913, and they make money. They make money by printing at interest to the U.S. government. So the more money debt we owe, the more money they print, the more money they make. I know in 2012, when I looked up the Federal Reserve, they made $12 billion by issuing increased debt certificates to the U.S. government in profits to their private shareholders, their corporations, the dead entities. We must get back out of the corporations and start talking about the people behind it, the people with names. We need to name the names. So the legal entity identifier, remember we're an entity, is a 20-digit alphanumeric code that connects key reference information that enables clear and unique identification of companies participating in global financial markets. It's based on the ISO standard 17442, developed by the International Organization for Standardization. Remember, we're just utilities, folks. We do not exist in the legal world. So this glossary of terms, you may want to go over and check this out, but direct parent is how they control it. Direct parent or direct accounting consolidated parent is defined as the lowest level legal entity preparing consolidated financial statements for the entity. For more information, refer to LEI ROC Public. Read more about it in here. Entity status indicates whether the entity is active or inactive. Active is assigned to an entity that has an independent legal status, includes solvent companies in normal operation, as well as those entities which are in administration, in receivership, bankrupt, which still have legal status. And then the inactive is assigned that no longer have independent legal status. The headquarters address is the legal entity or address of the fund manager where available. So you have a manager of you, of your person, your citizenship, relationship, partnership, ownership. We're out on ships. We're out to sea. That's why in court you have the docket and the bailiff. Legal name is the registered legal name of the entity is found as a native language on the documentation for incorporation, dead entity. This field has a maximum length of 255 characters and may include a Unicode characters, Universal UCC. The managing local operating unit field indicates which provider has management of the given entity record. So you can find this all out. All right, getting out of this. Now, this is all kind of new to me too, so I'm going to check into it more. But the reasons entity, non-living person, and entity may opt out of relationship report include natural persons, This is no parent according to the definition used, because the entity is controlled by a natural person without any intermediate legal entity meeting the definition of accounting consolidating parent. So if you declare you're sovereign, if you declare you're your own person legally, get out of all your contracts that you've signed on with your banks, with the driving as a privilege, with your social security card, with your birth certificate, you can become a natural person, but it's a major, major process. Non-consolidating. There is no parent according to the definition used. No known person. There is no parent according to definition. So one of the keys, it looks like, is getting rid of your parent who owns your ass. Legal obstacles in the laws of regulations of jurisdiction. Consent not obtained. Here you go. The consent of the parent was necessary under the applicable legal framework, and the parent did not consent or could not be contracted. So they're not talking about you. They're talking about who owns you. Binding legal commitments, such as articles governing the legal entity or contract. Detriment not excluded. Disclosure detrimental. So there should be something in there. There's another interesting thing. The postal code or zip code or PIN code is a legal postal code of the entity. This is how they track you. This field can have a maximum length of 20 characters, and any Unicode character is allowed. Region. The region is the state, prefecture, province, or administrative jurisdiction within the country or the entity. For the legal address region field, this information may be found on the entity's documentation of incorporation. So that's what we need to get, is the documentation of incorporation. Registration Authority Entity ID. The identifier or local number of the legal entity is maintained by the authority sources included where available and legally permissible, previously named the business registry number. Reporting reason. Required when no relationship record of the ultimate parent, folks. The ultimate parent. Who is your ultimate parent? Or your direct parent? Or the branch headquarters is provided for the legal entity. The ultimate parent or ultimate accounting consolidated parent, it's all based on accounting, folks. They got to account for you because you're dead, is defined. Remember just after that, when the U.S. Constitution, which was written by 55 rich white guys who owned land, who had incredible wealth, was a contract. The contracts cannot be assigned. It was we the people, those 55 rich white guys. They signed a contract. Okay, that's the U.S. Constitution. Everybody says, oh, the Constitution. No, it was the rich white guys that signed the Constitution. And after that, white guys that didn't own land couldn't vote. Women couldn't vote. Native Americans couldn't vote. Slave Africans couldn't vote. It was just we, the people, them. And then why did we pick the same exact colors as the British flag if we fought them to the death and we were going to start our new country? Would you pick the same exact colors? Or would you name Andrew White the first Archbishop of United States, after the White House is named after, who came into Jamestown on a boat called the Freemason? Look it up if you don't believe me. So, in closure here, I want to just give this shout out to this guy. I forget his name, but Clint Richardson. He's done great work on killing your straw man. I'm not sure if he's been successful, but he's done just really copious amounts of work. He's under Reality Blogger, and he's written this book on the straw man. And I'm very interested to see how much more he's been doing, being able to actually get remuneration and get out of the entity and get legal standing as a person, which sounds like what we all have to do. So I'll put this in the document as well, and you can peruse through it. And then anybody that tries this and goes through it, I'd love to hear how it works for them. Anyway, that's all I got for today. You're just an entity. You don't exist. You're indentured against the banksters who are owning all of us through our corporations that have parents, that have ownership entities, that are traded by brokers. You can call up your broker, give them your social security number, and you can look it up too, where you're being traded and what all the entities that own you are, because we're all traded as non-living beings. Get rid of the legalese system, folks. Don't talk about the politics, because that's part of the legalese system. We're a nation of laws, right? So no matter what the politics do, it always comes down to law. The new Democrat guy was on 60 Minutes talking about the law, the law, the law. This is the law which we must abolish. Get rid of it. Make your own rules. Make your own agreements. You are the author of your own authority. But we have to reclaim it and get out of this prison of legalese that owns all our asses, puts us in dead corporations of entities that do not exist as human beings. And this is the game, one of the major games they're playing with us. So hopefully this helps you a little bit. Peace. And let's be the change we have to see. Plain truth out. Catch you next video. Peace.
You see, there are two kinds of law. This is a subject I love. I've been talking about this for years. There are two kinds of law on the earth that rule the whole world, but most people don't know that. All over the world, all governments are ruled by what is called civil law. Civil law goes back to a Latin word, civili, which goes back to the word illy. Oh God, I mean, you could go on for hours on this stuff. Civil law, which is called in all countries the law of the land. So you'll say, well, you can't do that because that's against the law of the land. The law of the land is civil law, Roman civil law, the law of the land. But there is a second law which also operates all over the earth identical. It's called UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. That is the law of God in the world of business. I don't care if you're in Japan, in Africa, in China, in Istanbul, Turkey. If you have a company, if you have a corporation, if you are doing business where you buy and sell and make money, you are operating on this earth under something called UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. Because if all countries worked on a different commercial code, then nobody could do business with anybody. You couldn't trust Japan to pay you. Japan couldn't trust America to pay them for the cars, because everybody has their own laws. Under the Caesars of Rome, they established under Caesar that all nations in the empire that do business, everybody plays on a level field. If you do business in Africa with China, you pay them. And if Africa does business with American companies, you pay them. You pay whatever it is you're doing business. You don't mess around. The most severe law in this world is called UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. It's the Bible of business on the earth. Uniform Commercial Code. Uniform Commercial Code is based directly on Vatican canon law, on the Roman canon law. Consequently, when a ship pulls into port, it pulls in and stops, and it's called in its berth. The ship is now in its berth. Because it is on the law of the high seas, or commercial maritime, UCC commercial law, rules the seas. So when the ship pulls into its berth, the first thing the captain must do is to present a certificate of manifest to the port authorities, which means that the port authorities need to know how much is on this ship that you're bringing into our country and our economy. How many TVs, how many cars, whatever you're bringing, how much are you bringing into our economy. So you have to have a certificate of manifest of what is the value of your ship here. What are you doing? Consequently, when you are born, you come out of your mother's water. Therefore, you must have a birth certificate, a certificate of manifest, because you are a corporation-owned item. You are a human resource. This goes back to the German Nazi concept that every human coming out of their mother's water must be birthed. And therefore you have to have a certificate, a manifest, to see how much this individual is going to make for us in our new world order. I'm telling you that until you understand the laws, the symbols, the emblems, what these words mean, you're never going to suspect how far gone we really are. Did you know, for instance, that your birth certificate is a security on the stock exchange in the New York stock market? Did you know that? Because if you order your birth certificate, get a new one, order your birth certificate, it'll only cost you, sometimes it's free, it'll only cost you a few dollars. Order your birth certificate. On your birth certificate, all birth certificates in this country, on the bottom, it will tell you this is printed on security papers. Do not accept if not on full color security paper. Then on the right hand corner, you will always have a series of numbers red numbers printed on the birth certificate. Those numbers are a security stock exchange number on the World Stock Exchange. You go to any good stock office and ask them, check these numbers in your computer and see how much this stock is worth, the certificate. And they will check it on the New York Stock Exchange and find your birth certificate is a stock on the stock exchange in America. Why? Because you are worth money to the international bank that bought you in 1930. We need to wake up. This is serious stuff.